Do we have audio?
Yeah. Okay, so we should be live on Facebook and we should be live on YouTube, and
YouTube.
Instagram is giving me a hard time.
Really?
Oh, there we are. Okay, go live.
Can you
What's that?
Can you hand me a pillow from over there? I need a booster seat. Thanks.
All right, so we have people joining already. If you want to say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
And I'm gonna go check my phone. I'm gonna watch us be live on Instagram. So
You're out of the screen.
No, I'm not. This is the light. What you see there.
Yeah, because I'm dancing around on the screen, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Anyways, hey gang, how we doing? Sean from the Good Dog. Nice of you to join us. I'm not sure how many of you are out there at this point, but we'll get to the bottom of it in just a minute. Are we on Instagram yet?
Yes.
Awesome. So we've got Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Yes.
Look at that. Professional outfit almost. So we're here to.
We got a question. Sean, this is important. This is important for everybody who's watching, Sean. I got a friend request from Michael O'Shea. Is that you?
That is indeed me. Well, I mean, Michael O'Shea is my dad. Was my dad. But after Facebook deleted my page, even though I was doing my best to follow their rules to the best of my ability. Facebook changed their rules on music, licensed music you could use in videos. And I use the Splice app, and all the music there has been paid for and is licensed, and I'm allowed to use it wherever I want to use it. And Facebook decided that that wasn't the case anymore. And I tried to abide by their rules. I thought I was doing the correct thing. I absolutely, Marta knows, I absolutely was not trying to break, I'll show you, Facebook. I'll show you. I woke up one day and my account was closed, and that was it. And they said you can submit an appeal. I submitted an appeal, and they said that's great, and enjoy your appeal. And you're unappealing to us, and so that was it. Account was closed after 15 years on that page.
And all those pictures of all these years. And
15 years of friends, family, old colleagues from my music days, friends that I don't have contact with any other way. All the photographs, all the videos. I mean, I have a lot of the stuff on my Good Dog page, the Facebook Good Dog training page, but there's a lot of stuff that's lost, along with a lot of people and contact. So I'm working on rebuilding the page, but yeah, Facebook giveth and Facebook taketh away. Anyways, so just in case anybody wants to know, what the hell is this? This is TGD's Q&A Wednesday. So it used to be TGD's Q&A Saturday back in the day. And that wasn't live. That was always pre-recorded. We would take questions a few days ahead of time, and then we would shoot it and answer questions. This is a live affair, and it's done on Wednesdays instead of Saturdays. And God, excuse me, every time I turn the camera on. And we're trying to make every Wednesday happen. We missed it what was going on last week?
eColor Live.
All right, we were doing eColor Live. And so that was it. But that was a pretty good excuse. I mean, we were live and couldn't really do anything else. But the whole concept is, it's not super fancy. It's a Q&A show, and you get me and Marta, and we are here to answer your questions. And you can ask us about anything. You can ask about, what the hell is this Michael guy doing on Facebook? Where'd your Facebook page go? You can ask us about business. You can ask us about training. You can ask us about the Pacific Northwest and how we're liking it, and personal development ideas, concepts, anything. We're pretty wide open. So.
Okay. Monique says hi.
Monique who?
I'm Monique.
I'm just teasing. Monique Vargas, how are you?
That's right. Complete transformations.
Yes.
Okay. The person who asked about Michael O'Shea page says, okay, buddy, I'll go and accept now. Then we have the real Walker Texas Ranger. Mm-hmm. How many gray hats do you have? Is it the same hat you've had for years? I think at this point it's become part of the brand.
That's a good question. So this hat comes from my favorite haberdashery, which is a fancy term for hat shop, if I'm not mistaken. And it's Meyer the Hatter in New Orleans on St. Charles Street. And they've been there since, early 1800s, family owned forever and ever. And so I have many, many hats from there. But as far as kind of this is a very special gray felt paperboy hat, as they call them, and or flat cap, depends on, or Peaky Blinders hat, I guess they call them now. So interestingly enough, prior to this one, there was one other one, exact same hat, but I'd worn it so much and it was getting a bit dingy and dirty, but it was so perfectly molded to I loved it so much. I actually gave it to Jeff's son, Angelo. I don't know how old Angelo, maybe it was like 8 years old, something like that. And I gave Ange, there's pictures, I have pictures somewhere of Ange rocking.
With the hat on. Yeah, I think he was like 8.
Yeah, rocking my gray hat.
No, even younger than that, because he's 12.
He's probably got a bigger head than mine and probably has grown out of it. But yeah, so this is the second one. But this is there's not like, it's not like Batman and there's like a, open a closet and there's 20 of these and I'm like, which one?
But Sean always finds like the same. You can go online, it has the tags and everything on the back, so you can reorder the same.
Well, as far as the, you're talking about the other hat with the
But this
brim.
one too, this one you ordered, this is the third one you had since I've known you.
She doesn't know what she's talking about. This is I got this in person at Meyer the Hatter. The other one I've had many versions of. The one that has like the flipped rim all the way around, the gray one. That one I've ordered online. I bought, That one actually is not from Meyer. That's from the other haberdashery on not Decatur, on Charter Street. Mm-hmm. That's it used to be Gurn Brothers.
Yeah.
But Gurn Brothers went out of business, or at least there. But so I get my hats from 2 different locations. Yeah. Nobody cares about it.
They have online stores too. If anybody wants to get a hat like Sean has.
Don't you dare. I won't tell them what's the actual like.
The same person says also, how are there only 12 people in here? It's going to take a minute for people
people have to like find out.
And we are also terrible about posting that we're doing this, but at the same time,
it's kind of like a surprise pop-up Q&A.
Yeah.
I used to do those all the time.
But I remember on the, what was it called?
I would just do pop-up Q&A. I would be somewhere
on the rooftop of the loft. Mm-hmm. There was this program that people used back then, not Squid. Doesn't matter.
Are you talking about Periscope?
Periscope, yeah, on Periscope.
A program, people. Yes, Periscope used to be good.
But we have to start posting that we're doing this on Wednesdays at 4 p.m.
But isn't it weird that Periscope just like disappeared? It was such a cool, unusual app.
Yeah. Monique says, Monique who for real? Shelter One says, hi there, thank you for taking time to chat with us all.
Mm-hmm. Our pleasure.
Holly, our Louisiana Holly friend says, how are you enjoying Mal ownership?
I'm just
the wild ride.
I'm just barely owning. Marta's doing most of the owning. I just
and he's so easy.
Watch him tap dance around and do his thing.
Yeah, but he's a sweet boy.
He is a sweet boy.
He's a very sweet boy. Why did you leave New Orleans?
Well, there are a lot of reasons. So, in case you weren't aware, it's insanely hot there, and it's insanely humid. And the last, I'd say, because I've had a place there, I don't know, 12 years, and I've been going there for, it sounds crazy, but I've been going there for like 25 years. just traveling and being a tourist. And then I got a loft there for years. And then we actually moved and lived there for a long time. But the last, I'd say, 2 summers were just insanely hot, and like not just the summers, but the entire years were just insanely hot, and so that was rough. Marta really, really didn't enjoy the temperatures. She's from Europe, and so that was not something she was crazy about. She actually said, "I won't stay here another summer. We have to leave by June."
Just as an example, it's 55 degrees here in Bellingham right now, and it's already too hot for me. Like I'm already upset about how warm it is.
So there's that, and then there's no getting around the fact that just economy-wise, challenging down there. Super challenging for a lot of folks, and so
especially right now.
Yeah. So it's sad, but so we came up here, just more business opportunities and things like that, because we're surrounded by so many different bigger cities. Whereas there, you really got New Orleans and you've got Baton Rouge, and then you have to go out of state for anything else. So, but we miss it. We talk about it all the time.
Getting a small 1-bedroom apartment, or just like a studio where we can just go out for a couple weeks at a time and just enjoy the city we love.
Yeah,
and I don't have to bake and roast year long.
I had some business stuff that I did, but like a month and a half, 2 months ago. It was down there just for like 4 or 5 days.
And you have to come out at some point as well, again, for your next appointments.
So anyways,
okay.
What else we got?
How do I work with my 1.5-year-old to not be aggressive towards other dogs? She starts out wanting to play, but if they get irritated, then she gets irritated and starts to fight.
Are we talking about on leash, or are we talking about?
I'm assuming off leash, but we can wait for a second to find out.
Okay. If we're talking about on leash, there shouldn't be any greetings on leash. That's a very, very bad recipe.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, I don't know what's up with my voice. Can you read the question to me while they're responding again?
How do I work with my 1.5-year-old to not be aggressive towards other dogs? She starts out wanting to play, but if they get irritated, then she gets irritated and starts to fight. So couple questions. Is your dog maybe a little bit too much with other dogs, and then the other dogs don't like it and then get defensive? Does your dog need specific dog friends who love to body tackle as well? Or does your dog seem like your dog wants to play but doesn't actually enjoy and doesn't know how to be in a respectful space around other dogs? So for me, if that was my dog and I had that issue, my goal would be to have my dog be able to live in a calm space around other dogs first before I would allow any interactions.
Yeah. So there's so many different variables and so many different pieces in this.
Off leash with my other male and foster female.
Okay. So there's plenty of dogs that aren't dog aggressive. They're just bad matches.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to have dogs that just don't enjoy each other's company because their play styles or personalities just don't jive. And so now, that said, so we've got compatibility stuff, but then we also have, how do those 3 dogs exist in your home and in your yard and in your life? And is it chaotic? Are they keenly aware that there are rules and structure and accountability, and there's a leader, also known as you?
She says she has played with them all her life. This just started. And the dog is 1.5. So sometimes with a dog who's
the dog's starting to mature. So, I mean, that's not, if you want
to. I had that same problem with our oldest dog. He's turning 10 soon, which, oh my gosh. But same thing. I lived in New Zealand before I moved to the States, and I had a small daycare. And so my dogs would play and run around with the other dogs pretty much all day long, except for when they had breaks. And he did always fantastic. And then at around 1.5, he started not being friendly with other dogs anymore. And the early on, when he was like 4 months old, little puppy, he got attacked by 3 off-leash dogs pretty bad. And after that, he was so good with other dogs, but as he started maturing, things shifted, and it's a pretty common occurrence. Most dogs who come in for training to us come in for training between 1 and 2.5 years old, because that's when problem behaviors truly start to show.
As the dogs are maturing, reaching full maturation,
Yeah, so basically it's the difference between like going from a 10-year-old kid to like a 16, 17-year-old who's now slowly moving into like adulthood and seeing the world in their own ways, and also wanting their own freedom and things like that. So I'm not surprised when things like that pop up out of nowhere. But my goal with that would be, because Sean and I, of course, have more than just our oldest dog, and he coexists with our other dogs and plays with most of them fine as well. But it's a process. One being that the understanding as far as the life in our household is respectful and friendly and calm, and there's
everybody has to abide by those rules.
Yeah, and they don't get like they don't get to just be rowdy and noisy and jumping and things like, and chaotic.
Except for when it's playtime.
Yeah, so
specific playtime.
Yeah, because otherwise it's kind of just like the Wild West, and then one dog doesn't feel like it, then the other dog doesn't feel like it, and then you have dog fights.
And chaos breeds chaos. So that's why I was saying it depends how your dogs live with you, in the yard, in the house, all that stuff. And so you might have been able, and I'm not saying you're living chaotically, but if you were, you might have been able to get away with it until the point that your dog is starting to mature. Now, that maturation, and my dog went through the same thing. My dog used to, this is 25 years ago before I knew better, but used to go to the dog park, and it wasn't until he turned 18 months that he started to go after other dogs. Before that, he played great with other dogs. So it could be that your dog is starting to mature up, starting to maybe get more rowdy, starting to be a little bit more pushy, starting to be a little bit more full of themselves, or your dog could be taking exception with being pushed around and not even bullied necessarily, but having firmer boundaries and being like, no, I'm not gonna stand for that, not gonna deal with that. It can be so many different things. For me, I try not to get into like what's the the ingredients that are created. We can go down a rabbit hole, every one of us, and we just shared our stories of like what we think most likely is the cause, but we don't have any guarantee that that's why Archie is the way he is and he wouldn't be any different. It's most likely, and it's most likely that's why Oakley's the way he is. But it's truly a dead end, I would say, rabbit hole, because it doesn't give you like let me say it this way. What went down with Oakley's behavior, what went down with Archie's behavior, and what's going down with your dog's behavior, it doesn't matter where it came from. All that matters is like when I addressed Oakley and how you have addressed Archie and how we live with our dogs is the only thing that matters. So what caused it, and a lot of people will tell you differently and be like, you got to get to the root cause to understand how you can. It's like, you don't. So
you have to address the root.
You have to address the way that things manifest and make sure that things are healthy. And so, like Marta said, our dogs live in a non-chaotic state. They know that there's a hierarchy where humans lead and dogs follow, and there are consequences for bad choices. And so we don't get a lot of bad choices. And so we get dogs that are self-aware, meaning they're making decisions based on the awareness that their actions have consequences attached to them. So we got that in place. So now our dogs, even with Archie being uncomfortable about other dogs that he's unfamiliar with, they can all hang and they can do their thing, and everything is good. Even if we don't know 1,000,000% what was the cause of it, what we know is here's what we did in order to make things better, and now things are cool. And same thing went on with Oakley. I had to do the same thing with him. And I would suggest the same thing with you, which is first and foremost, make sure you've got rules, structure, accountability, leadership. Dogs are all aware that you run the show and that they're super critical, that there are consequences attached to crappy behavior, crappy choices, anything like that. So if and that doesn't mean that has to be like snarky like battles and stuff. Just if any of your dogs are just being pushy and with the other dogs, and the other dogs aren't enjoying it, like you have to step in. Otherwise, if you let just like little things just kind of bubble and bubble and bubble, next thing you know, you've got dog fights or scraps and scuffles and stuff like that. So that's what I would do. Is I would go first. We have a howling dog. First and foremost, I would just go after creating rules, structure, and accountability. And I know that sounds like vague, but it's not. You got to look into what that stuff is, and put that stuff in place. And then you have to make a decision about, are your three dogs now at this age, are they compatible players? And maybe they really are, as long as you're there and supervising, and they realize we've got to give our best behavior rather than just kind of willy-nilly doing what they want to do.
All right, next question. Claire Bear, dog question. Hard flooring in my house. Lived here for 4 years. Dog got wet feet outside. Slipped when coming in the house once and is now terrified on the floor of the floor. I have put mats down. Help, please. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. So basically, the dog slipped, and since then has been worried, walking on the floors.
How long ago was that? Would be like, how long has this been going on that the dog has been phobic of the floors?
So I would say, regardless of how long it's been going on.
No, I just mean, like, did it just happen? Like yesterday, and
right. If it just happened recently, maybe it's just. But she had enough time to get mats, so.
Yeah. So the whole thing is, we've had plenty of phobic dogs, floor phobic dogs come in, and it's just exposure, and a lot of that stuff is going to be uncomfortable stuff. Especially a lot of dog training, current mindset, mentality stuff is going to be, okay. So, and I don't mean this with you, but just let's put some mats down and let's like work around the problem. And what I would do is I would flood your dog by bringing your dog to the situation that's uncomfortable and pushing your dog through what's uncomfortable.
It's been going on for about a month.
Yeah, I would push your dog through, and literally, I don't know what tools you use. If that dog was here, dog would be on a prong collar, and I would use just enough pressure to keep the dog moving, and just like keep moving. And I would dedicate a certain amount of time where we would just truck around the house, do, and just go. The whole thing is, anxiety and phobias, they only have so much battery life. They only have so much energy behind them. And if you expose and expose and expose and expose, you burn. I'm doing air quotes because it's kind of my own terminology, but you burn out the circuit. The anxiety circuit will burn out. It's how I got rid of being phobic of flying. And so I was on a tour. It's a famous tour, but I was on a tour. Not that famous, but I was on a tour.
She says he wears a prong. I've walked him over the floors with pressure on the prong. Yep, done it all. I'm so lost.
Yeah, but you just have to keep doing it. Like,
some of the stuff just truly just takes time of doing it over over and over again.
And I would get rid of the mats. So like, let me be really clear here. The last thing you want to do is offer some respite from the thing that the dog is worried about. And that means your dog is going to be stressed about not having something that is more comfortable. And so for me, just thinking like, kind of spitballing off the top of my head with this, I would, instead of having a placemat, I would have the dog in a downstay on the floor, and I would have him back tied. It's like, you got to hang out here, and then get up, walk him around, do some fun stuff, see if you can get him to play, see if you can get him, like, feed him, his meals only occur on the floor. Like, do all the simple, very kind of like more obvious stuff. Like, play is going to happen on this floor. Affection is going to happen on this floor. Feeding is going to happen on this floor. And downstays and all the other stuff that only happens on the floor. If you give phobias any kind of space to kind of recharge the battery, then they do, and then they just keep going and going and going. And that's why I was saying, like, get rid of the mats. Get rid of them, and you have to be prepared for your dog to be like, oh my God, this is really hard. so they can move through it. If you don't, then likely that phobia battery will just recharge and recharge and recharge. There are people that would likely tell you, you just have to go out and like 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes at a time so you don't go over threshold, and don't overwhelm them, put them back on the mat, and then take them off, and then just do a little exposure. That I just haven't seen that work. What I have seen work is just simple flooding, and then adding all the fun stuff to where you get the dog's mind off of that they're even doing the stuff on the floor. When we had Leroy, the white shepherd, who was absolutely just like pancaking and completely phobic of our floors, I just took him around. I had him, I think, initially on prong, and then moved him to e-collar, and I just worked him constantly, and he was stressed for a good week or so, and then he got better, and he got to the point where he would and he was truly phobic. He got to the point where he was pretty damn good with it.
Yeah, but it takes a minute, and you can't give them any like chances where then okay, we do this for an hour, and then you can go back to your
comfortable space.
Yeah.
That's, I think, counterintuitive, because we think they need to have like a place to kind of rest and not be overwhelmed. The whole thing is like, if you take anything away from this conversation, think about, you want to burn out that circuit. And what I was saying, and I'll just wrap this up really quick, the way I got over my flight phobia, and I mean it was serious phobia with it, was that I was on a tour for a month, and I flew every single day for a month. And by the time I got done with that month-long tour, and we're talking about small little planes, like little dangerous, scary planes, I was like, I've got no more anxiety left. At some point, there wasn't like a distinct moment, but at some point I was like, I don't have any more anxiety left. If the plane wants to crash, let it go. And to this day, I've got zero anxiety with flights. So that, if I would have flown, think this is why I wanted to tie it in. If I would have flown the same amount of times, but spread it out over the course of a year, I'd still be scared of flying, I'm sure. So.
Okay. Hellhound Trainer says, thank you so much for the signed book and leash. I just officially got a training space.
Oh, nice.
And couldn't have come at a more perfect time.
Oh, that's great. Enjoy. And good luck with your training space.
A tail above says, I'm with Marta. I love the code.
The code?
Cold.
Oh, the cold.
Hilda Bear says, how can I stop my puppy from jumping up on people she likes?
Marta, you're the puppy specialist.
So depends on how old the puppy is. If we're talking under, because some people call a 9-month-old dog a puppy, that's not a puppy to me anymore. But if we're talking about like 12 weeks, 16 weeks, like under 4 months, I would probably, for one, make sure that when your dog is meeting, your puppy's meeting people, that I have a leash on, so that she doesn't get, or he doesn't get into a bad habit of just running up to people, because that's just a bad habit you get into from a young age. And if you have a leash on, then you could give a little like a little pop, like a martingale or a slip lead. And you could also use like a pet corrector, just like a compressed air can, or even just like a water bottle, just to give a couple squirts and say no.
You're really, like, if we're gonna just break it down into like honest, realistic, simple terms, you want to make.
Oh, is a year old. Okay. So that's a prong collar and a leash.
Yeah, you just want to make jumping uncomfortable, right? Because jumping is enjoyable at this point. So people will tell you, teach the dog an alternative or incompatible behavior. That doesn't teach your dog not to jump. It teaches them another behavior. So both, now your dog's got 2 behaviors in their repertoire.
I jump and then I sit and I get food. And it's a sequence of events of how
you're doing the old. Yeah, don't do that. So just keep life simple. This stuff is so simple. So like Marta said,
pet corrective for that, if you don't have a prong collar, would be so easy to do.
But did she say she has a prong collar?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay. So yeah, but so if it's really something you want to like get done, like, okay, couple options. You got a 1-year-old dog, right?
Yeah.
It's not a puppy.
Yeah.
So make yourself a bonker. If you don't know what a bonker is, go on YouTube, do the research. It's super easy. Won't cost you probably anything because you probably have everything you need to make one.
Right, yeah.
And bonk your dog a couple times. Like, just be ready. Have somebody come in, like set it up and bonk your dog for jumping up, and it'll probably go away right there in one session. I would keep the bonker around just in case your dog gets, jazzed at some other point and decides I'm going to try and push it and see if the rules still apply. So bonkers, one way you can do it. Leash and prong, you have the dog drag a leash around with a prong attached while you're supervising. Somebody's coming over, and then you're holding the leash with no tension, nice and loose, and you let your dog make a decision. Your dog jumps up, give it a little pop. When your dog jumps up and your dog goes, oh, when I jump up, it predicts a leash pop that I don't like. Okay, I won't jump up. Doesn't make your dog not like people, doesn't make your dog scared of people, because it's not the person that made the correction happen, it's the jumping up that made the correction happen. So that's what I would do. Those are very, very easy solutions for that. Cool. What else you got, lady?
Zofia says hi.
Hi, Zofia. La cucaracha.
La cucaracha? Why la cucaracha?
If you know, you know.
Oh, yeah, la cucaracha. Zofia, you need to come on over. We miss you. And I'm going to do a little guilt tripping. Zofia, you were supposed to go ice skating with me.
Oh, did she let you down?
Yeah.
Oh, did she break your heart?
Yeah.
I thought Canadians were supposed to be nice.
I know. She's supposed to be my friend. Okay, adopting a new foster rescue. Notice when he gets excited or nervous, he pees. Any advice how to troubleshoot?
I have the same problem.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting older, so
you are getting older.
It's not that abnormal.
Sean is turning 57 soon. In a couple weeks.
Am I really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's March 13th. March 13th.
And that's a wrap for this program. I'm out of here. Wow. That's crazy. I hadn't thought about that. 57's got a little difference. 56 just feels like, you just cruise around in the mid 50s. But 57?
By the time you're 60, you will finally have children, John.
It's leaning that direction. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Adopting a new foster rescue. Notice when he gets excited or nervous, he pees. Any advice how to troubleshoot?
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty common thing, and we see with a lot of dogs that'll come in here that are more nervous or excited. So you can get submissive pee, you can get excited pee, you can get all that stuff at your local grocery store. Sorry, bad joke. You can get those very easily, and the trick is, if you know it's excitement-based stuff, and it's very easy to tell, like people getting around the dog, getting the dog jazzed up, and too much affection and interaction, and the dog gets overly stimulated, and the dog pees, then don't do that, and just keep it nice and neutral and relaxed, and let the dog, the dog sounds like it's new to the family, right?
What's that?
The dog's new to the family, right?
Yeah.
Right. So let the dog just keep everything low key. If we want to make it super simple, keep it low key, because the low key will make the affection low key, or the interaction or the stimulation low key. So you won't get the excitement urination. And then also, if the dog is nervous and worried about it, being low key and just ignoring the dog and letting the dog be a dog, and just letting the dog kind of find its own comfort and its own confidence in the situation, and then decide to engage at whatever degree it wants to engage in. Cool. Then that will likely stop the excited and or submissive pee wherever it comes from. And then if you just give the dog a little bit of time of patterning that and getting comfortable, likely that stuff will go away. Now, the only thing I would say as an exception is if you see that it continues on, especially if it's submissive pee, it really goes either way. But if it's submissive pee coming from people just overwhelming the dog, just make sure you give people clear instructions about not to overwhelm the dog.
Marula used to submissive pee for months.
When
she was probably 8 months old, and I had to just have everybody stop talking to her because she loves people. She's a very social dog. She will go, anybody who comes, she would go home with anybody, just like right now. And she's 9 now.
Yeah.
And I would have to just be like, nobody talk to her, nobody touch her, everybody leave her alone. And then she stopped after I set just like super firm rules with everybody.
Yeah. So, and that's basically what I was just saying. It's just everybody just low key, let the dog be, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Tone vibrate on e-collar. What do you use it for? Currently only using tone for nudging him along while out to potty. Sometimes gets too distracted. So we don't really, should say really, we don't use tone or vibrate. So vibrate, especially people, some dogs either don't care about it at all, or they are terrified of it. Yeah. And then tone doesn't really have a ton of purpose, at least the way we train it doesn't. Some trainers use it for recall, tone recall, but it's no different than teaching the dog
a verbal recall.
Yeah.
So tone is just a signal that tells the dog you're supposed to come back, or whatever you connect the tone to be. You could make tone sit, tone down. You could do whatever you want to do, but people typically use it for recall. And so, like Marta said, vibe, a lot of people will just, instinctively, because they've heard it somewhere on the internet, when you're training deaf dogs, use vibrate to get the dog's attention, and then you give the dog a hand signal. It's like, we don't do that, because like Marta said, the vibe is oftentimes overwhelming. If you were working with a deaf dog and you truly want to have reliability and control with a deaf dog, well, their brains are going to get into spaces where certain times the environment is going to be hyper stimulating. And do you want to be relying on a vibe button that just is always the same thing and the dog just tunes it out because it's worried, freaked out, or excited? No. So we use a quick double tap, low level, get the dog's attention, give them a hand signal, and we go from there. And then with tone stuff, if I was dealing with like hunting dogs, really, really large, like big distances, something like that, where I was worried about my voice not carrying or something like that, then that might be something I could justify. But for our clients, they're not looking for that kind of distance recall. So there's not really any need in our world for tone recall. A lot of people have kind of pushed it as not telling the whole story that I'm doing a tone recall, so it's like it means it's not a stem recall, but that's not what the case is. It implies that there's no correction, but there is a correction if you're training right and you're training appropriately. It's just, you just have to remember, tone is just a replacement for voice. That's it.
Okay. We'll do a couple Instagram questions and then we'll move over to Facebook. Where would you start with working on dog reactivity while in the car only?
Dog reactivity,
but in the car only.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you gotta have solid tools on your dog as far as like from my perspective. It's just, I want to make sure that I have a way to communicate with the dog in whatever environment. So that would be something, if you did a board and train here, the dog would be e-collar trained, and then it would be super easy because your reactive dog would be in the car and you would have your dog just lay down, or you would correct your dog for exploding at the windows, and your dog would either just learn, because you pattern it, to lay down while you're driving, or your dog would learn, oh, I don't bark out the window, and get reactive and get crazy. It's a very common behavior. E-collar is just really easy to correct it with because you're driving, and so you can have a remote and you can correct it, the dog behind you. Now you could also have somebody with leash and prong, something like that, and you can train the same behaviors. You can train a down in the car with leash and prong. You can train a down in the car with food, but you have to have something that you can enforce the rules with. Food just teaches the dog what I want, but it doesn't create reliability or enforce the rules. So you need some kind of a tool that's going to let your dog know, here are the rules, here's what I want, and here are the consequences that come if you disregard these rules. So e-collar training obviously is the best as far as like having the best form of communication, especially for car stuff. it's so good to train dogs that are like that, just to lay down in the car and just make that a default behavior. And if that's not something that you want, then you have to just correct them for getting nutty at the windows and things like that, which once again with e-collar isn't tough. Leash and prong, tougher unless you're gonna have somebody ride in the back seat and correct the dog, because otherwise you're driving and it's gonna be real hard to do. You could also have somebody in the back seat and bonk your dog. Once again, people are gonna be like, dude, but what are you just like bonking, like smacking dogs? Like if a dog is getting all worked up, aroused and crazy in the back seat, or I would imagine it's in the back seat of the car, then yeah, have somebody in the back seat and give your dog a good bonk. Like knock it off. You don't need to be going crazy. It's just a typical, it's such a standard, common behavior problem, and so many people deal with it. And most of the stuff that we're talking about, like, is do we need to train stuff and create, like, there's these two paths, right? And they both can work together, but we can train the dog and get into this whole complex thing of like, okay, so we got to do all of these other things, but there are a lot of behaviors that are just unwanted behaviors that just need a simple answer as far as don't do that, and just needs to be make that uncomfortable to do. And it's really that simple. So you get to decide what you want to do with that. Do you want to have a more comprehensive training program with your dog, or a thing with your dog as far as where your dog understands all these other behaviors and you correct for the stuff that you don't like? The thing I'm kind of trying to push back against is that a lot of people will train a lot of obedience commands, but they won't punish just unwanted behaviors. So they'll try and use obedience as kind of a workaround. And so, like I was saying, downstay in the back seat. Me personally, I would not do the downstay first. I would correct the nuttiness. I always do it in two stages like that. It's like dogs that rush to the front door. People are like, put the dog on place. I'm like, no, let the dog go to place. Let the dog go to the front door. Correct the dog for running to the front door, make the front door an unsavory thing to run to, then use place, and then it works like a charm. But a lot of people are trying to, like, I don't want to punish the dog for the behavior, so I'm just going to use place. And then they try and get the dog to stay there, and the dog oftentimes won't because it's too enticing to go to the door. Same thing with, like, okay, I'm gonna try and keep the dog in a downstay, down while you're driving, down, 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 and the dog like keeps getting up because it's too enticing, because you haven't created an inhibition via punishment for the dog to go, okay, I won't do that thing. Now, if you punish the dog, you may not even need the downstay. The dog might just self-regulate and be like, got it. Or if the dog gets itself kind of worked up after being punished for it, then in a downstay, and then now you've put the two together. So.
All right. Tiffany says, although I've never met y'all, we miss you. But I hope you're enjoying my home state, meaning missed you having, like, being dog trainers, I think, in Washington State.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very, very nice.
Enjoying my home state is beautiful, but too cold and rainy. I'm
with you.
I love the rain. I love the cold.
Yeah. Well, not everybody is you.
There's so much beauty in, like, standing in rain that you just need a good rain jacket. And I love walking around in rain boots and just splashing rainwater. It's the little things in life.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that apartment in New Orleans so I can wintertime.
That's okay.
It's wintertime. I'm out.
If you had to, Alejandro is asking, if you had to pick, what's the most challenging case you've ever encountered?
The most challenging case would probably be a dog named Grunt, who was so horribly, terribly, sadly, cognitively impaired that he was incapable of learning at any level to any degree. Had a very, very sad ending. Just that's probably the hardest, worst case, because there was really nothing that you could do. There was no medication that could be given. something was definitely wrong with him, and they found him after. I mean, we did everything we could for the owners to try and help them find a better way to live with him, but you couldn't use really any tools with him. He couldn't make any associative learning. There was nothing that you could do to condition any commands using all food, anything like none of that stuff worked, and just was a dog with some major major stuff. And they found him after he went home from the board and training months later, just in the backyard, just like kind of smashing his head into the brick wall, and they had to put him down. And so, anyways, that's like one of the, like, if we're talking about just a sad and, like, a case where you couldn't really do much. Then we've had a lot of cases where dealing with really like dangerous, hardcore, heavy duty dogs, and they require a ton of work and diligence. Then we've got super fearful cases, and those are very like small incremental little success situations. I'm trying to think if anybody stands out as far as being like, I mean, and then you have your euthanasia cases where dogs that are so
when
bad.
we started doing more free work for rescues, that's when I think it just got a little tough for us, because we would be asked to take a look at dogs that
more like
long-termers, or also like, is there any chance? And because the rescues would like to have a good second opinion. But then we just felt like the grim reapers of like, just like, yeah, there isn't much we can like do. So that was really hard. So
prior to that, I mean, there was only a small handful of dogs that I'd ever had to recommend for euthanasia
in many years.
And those cases are just dogs that can't safely live with humans.
It's one thing if they already had a home and people would try, like, committed because they've had the dog.
What I'm talking about, these dogs had a home that I'm talking about. If we're talking about the rescue dogs, then you're talking about even a far more difficult situation where you've got dogs with bite history and behavioral problems, and you're trying to find a home for them where no one's emotionally attached. So if someone's already emotionally attached to a dog and they have behavior problems, a lot of people are okay to work through that stuff and accept a dog for whatever they've got going on. But when you're trying to basically, I mean, if we're just gonna be honest, like, invite a challenging, problematic, possibly dangerous dog into someone's life, that's a pretty hard sell. So
so I just checked in on YouTube, and Kim, who did a shadow program with us, says, "Hey guys, watching from Maryland."
All right, hi Kim.
I love seeing our shadow students come and pop in. Yeah. Okay. So nothing on Facebook. Let me see on Instagram. Any questions? No. We are all out of questions.
All out of questions. Okay. Well, do you want to?
Well, Gabby's Animal Rescue Inc. says happy early birthday.
Thank you.
We're talking about you getting all of the kneeling diapers.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
So I'm just gonna pop in here a quick announcement, just kind of like TGD land stuff, which we really have to get back on, like, doing our newsletter.
Yeah.
We'll be doing seminars in only a handful of locations this year. We did so many last year, and we've been very. This is my announcement.
I was just going to go through the list of the places.
We've been pretty homesick, so just having a few seminars will be nice. So we will be in South Glen Falls, New York.
Yep.
We'll be in Phoenix, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
We will be in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
We will be in Santa Barbara, California. And we'll be in close to Boston.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about Boston.
Denver's like 40 minutes, like right outside of Boston.
Yep.
With Nelson at Happy Canine. Nelson is a good guy. If anybody up there in that area needs a training place, Nelson is your guy for sure. We also have, of course, shadow programs. We are only doing one a month this year.
We stopped the crazy two a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we are slowly booking out of those. So if anybody has been thinking about joining, snatch your spots up, because we won't have those for long. And then the last one is Yeah, so we just finished the e-collar live last week, e-collar 201, and we will be finalizing the edits on that. We have a couple of bonus things we are filming for that to include, and then we'll go on our website, the Good Dog Way Online Academy, thegoodDogWayOA.com, and all of our courses will be there to purchase and stream for life.
Along with seminar tickets too.
Seminar tickets too as well, yeah, if you are interested.
Yeah, and just in case anybody's curious, the eCollar 101 and 201, basically it's two programs obviously, and it walks you through exactly well, actually we used a couple dogs in the second one. The first one we just used Hemlock. Mm-hmm. And so you get to see the entire process, problem solving, working through the entire thing to get the dog through the first two phases of our e-collar program. And then e-collar 201, we use two dogs and going through phases 3 and 4, the final frontier. So it's pretty cool because there's a lot of problem solving, a lot of nuance, a lot of like technique and stuff like that. Still simple and presented in a simple fashion, but got in some pretty cool stuff as far as problem solving and the kind of real behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
So what else? Anything else?
Our kitties so upset. Okay. Have you ever worked with reactivity, stranger danger with cervical neurological issues, Wobbler's syndrome?
Cervical?
It says cervical. Cervical, yeah. Wobbler's syndrome.
Not with that specific diagnosis that I can remember.
No, I can't either. No. If you want to let us know some info about that, though, so we can see if we can brainstorm, what practical steps would you take to correct adult dog for leg humping when over-aroused?
Adult dog what?
Leg humping when over-aroused.
What do you think?
Bonker.
Like, once again, guys, like, keep it simple. Why is the dog doing the humping? It's exciting. It's fun. It's rewarding. Why not hump? If one can hump, why not hump? Sorry. So you need to figure out what is your dog's kryptonite in that scenario, right?
Could be e-collar, could be prong, just like anything that your dog will make it stop doing it and then keep correcting until it becomes.
You don't need to create something where the dog feels good about not doing it. All you need to do is make it unpleasant. Right now, it's very pleasant for your dog to do it. Make it unpleasant and your dog will stop doing it. So you got your bonker, you got your e-collar, you got your prong collar. You could even do it with a martingale. There's a whole bunch of different stuff. You could even, if the dog's humping your leg, give him a knee and be like, knock that crap off. Like if a dog starts humping my leg, I'm not gonna be like, somebody throw me a tool. I'm going to be like, boom, get out of here. So you're not going to damage the dog by doing any of this stuff. We're in such a, I don't mean you, but we're in such a mode right now where dogs are so like viewed as such fragile creatures, and we'll let them manhandle us. And then we'll, like if anybody's watched dogs play, like you see them like run into trees and into walls. They're like, come on. They're like virtually indestructible. And yet we're afraid of any kind of sharing any kind of consequence with them. Once again, don't mean you, but we're afraid. Many people are afraid of sharing any kind of consequence with them that will actually change their behavior because we're,
Our Chihuahua, he's not neutered. And he's at this fun age where he just realized that he can do things. And so he's constantly trying to hump our other female dogs. And so we just correct him, just a quick hand correction because he's so little. I just go like that. He's like, oh, okay, sorry. Mm-hmm. And it's just like when they're doing something you don't want them to do, make sure you find an aversive that will make them stop, that they care enough about, that is also easy for you to use. So anything where you want the dog to just stop, whether that's barking, whining, humping, digging, etc.
Jumping.
Yeah, that literally just means stop, don't do that. You can use so many different tools. You just have to find whatever works the best for your dog. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like my mom's dog, she just uses a water spray bottle whenever her dog barks. and it works great.
The whole thing is we're just trying to connect some aversive event. Now people freak out because they're like, aversive event. Like that's a spectrum of aversive, that aversive that an aversive event can be like, holy shit, that's really aversive, to like, that's pretty aversive, to that was barely even noticeable, but it was mildly unpleasant. So we have to be careful that we don't let the language scare us away, right? But aversive means it should be unpleasant, right? And so all you're trying to do is connect some aversive event, some thing that is connected to when your dog does the behavior. That's it. And if your dog cares enough about the aversive event that you're sharing, they'll just stop doing the behavior. Like we're honestly making, once again, not you, we're honestly making this dog training thing so much more complicated than it is. We've gotten so divorced from just kind of natural instincts. And I'm not saying go around and be heavy-handed by any means or any stretch for, with dog stuff, but there's a disconnect from just practical reality and interactions with dogs, where humans are so hamstrung now, where they have to do all sorts of, let me redirect the dog with food or something. Well, he's humping me, let me redirect. He's jumping, let me redirect. It's like we've gotten so disconnected from, no, I don't want that behavior. That's an unpleasant behavior. And it's also an unpleasant way for my dog to be engaging in the environment and around people. And not only do I want my dog to stop doing that individual behavior, I want my dog to be more mindful about their behavior in general, and that they should engage but engage around human beings in a respectful, polite fashion in a general sense. And so all of this redirecting and using food to try and dodge aversives and punishment and things like that, not only do they not do a good job at all of teaching the dog what you don't want them to do, it also does a terrible job, just as terrible of a job, of creating very poor relationship or / social dynamics between the dog and you. You look like a Pez dispenser pushover doormat. And so what ends up happening, if you have a really soft dog, not much. If you have a really, really mild dog, you can get away with a lot of that stuff. If you have a dog with a little bit more stuff attitude-wise under the hood, they'll see that and they'll start to take advantage of it. And that's when people start getting into real problems with their dogs.
And this isn't just about leg humping, but just correcting dogs for unwanted behaviors, generally speaking. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Josh is saying South Bend's Falls is pretty close to us. We won't be able to make it with Winston this time, but hopefully in the future. That's so sad. I wish you guys would be able to. It would be really cool to see you guys. But
yeah. Winston the Bulldog?
Yeah, Winston the Bulldog.
Oh, man. Are they doing good?
We have fond memories with Winston. He was one of our last training dogs in...
Winston was a challenging dog.
He was a challenging dog, and his owners did amazing with him.
Talk about stepping up.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I lost all the comments on Instagram, you guys, because the app closed and then it resets the comments, so I can't see them. So I'm gonna go over and check Facebook if you guys want to ask on Instagram one more time. Anything specific? Okay.
What do we got?
What is your favorite, or in your top 5 case you have encountered? It's okay if you're out of time. So favorite basically dog you work with.
I would say anytime it's a situation where where it doesn't look very promising because the dog is really challenging and the owners have so much they have so much distance to close in order to be able to succeed. And so when we've had dogs that are truly extreme, intense, challenging dogs, and their owners are just naturally softer, and then getting owners to step up and close that gap, those are the cases. So if any of you have ever read my first book, There's a little portion in there on a dog named Dozer, and Dozer he passed away a couple of years back, Neapolitan Mastiff with a fairly severe bite history with his owner, and had really damaged her. He came in for a board and train in Chatsworth and had a go at all, the entire crew. He tried to bite everybody. 135-pound dog, majorly damaged his owner. His owner, very small female, super scared of him, as she should be. And I always go back to that case when I talk to shadows, and even at seminars I'll talk about it, because it's one of those things. Why it's one of many, but we're still in contact, actually, me and the owner. That always reminds me to stay optimistic and never close the door on something until we've done.
Tricia says, "I'm here."
Look who it is. It's the lady. And so Tricia, who just chimed in, she showed up at our first go home session after we had done the board and train with Dozer, and she was in a pretty tough spot, still worried, still nervous, still insecure, still a bit kind of frozen with, having to be back around him and trying to work with him. And I was very, very, very concerned about her safety. We do 2 sessions, 2 go home sessions, and I was super concerned. And so I'd already prepared myself for the next day, to have a very serious conversation with her. But she showed up the next day, and I've talked to her, like I PM'd her before and tried to, needle her for details about like, what happened? How did you do that thing you did? But she showed up the next day, and it's kind of become like TGD folklore with all of our trainers. Everybody knows her story and knows her story. But she showed up and she was a different person. And she was like, okay, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And instead of timidly giving commands and timidly and in an insecure fashion, kind of moving around the house and around Dozer, she was confident. And she was like, come down. He would step up. No. And just like bang, bang, bang. And Dozer, you could see the look in his eyes. He was like, holy shit, who is this lady? And so cases like that, where somebody has so much distance to cover and personal change and transformation that they have to undergo to make it happen, we have to do heavy lifting with the dog. The owner has to do heavy lifting with themselves, and then with the dog themselves. Like, she lived a fantastic life with him after that board and train. And, we got to see evidence of, like, she shoots lots of fancy pictures with
beautiful
Neapolitans.
photos.
Yeah. And so we got to see him all over the place. And so stories like that are the ones that.
And same thing with Winston's owners. Winston is such a hard, pushy dog. Bulldogs in general are pushy, but
he's at the far end of like, yeah, you looking at me.
Yeah, but bulldogs are typically easy because they're so lazy that it's just like more just like they don't want to do things, but they don't typically have as many like terrible behaviors. But Winston was a super challenging dog.
Happy to bite, super attitude. Yeah, luckily the one benefit with him was that he wasn't huge. He wasn't a big bulldog. He was on the smaller size, not tiny, but like smaller. And his owners had a ton of work to do to close that gap, and they did such a great job. And it was really out of their wheelhouse as far as their comfort zone, and they just stepped up and pushed through.
Did a fantastic job.
Yeah. So those are the cases.
I will always fondly remember Winston, because when he was like, I'm not doing this anymore, he would jump into our fireplace and hide in the fireplace.
Yeah, I'd be doing.
It was a big open fireplace that never got used.
Yeah, it was in Louisiana. There was no fire on. Yeah, because it's Louisiana. But but I'd be doing follows through the house, like off leash follows, and he'd be like, No. And he would like run and jump in the fireplace. And then I'd have to get him out. He'd have a long line on. I'd have to get him out and he'd be like covered in soot and stuff like that.
Alex from the Shadow Program is
saying,
1 year he's actually coming to Seattle at some point. Christine said she was going to spend a day with him.
Nice.
1 year I'm going to get you all out to Milwaukee. I've never been to Milwaukee, so we should definitely take Alex up on that. One thing I hear a lot on the force-free side of the fence is not to correct a dog growling or showing warning, because it will make the warning go away and the dog will just skip the warning and go for the bite. Can you talk to appropriately correcting a dog for an appropriate communication?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's gonna be one of the controversial ones in the dog training world.
And Trisha says thank you to my amazing teachers.
Oh, you're welcome. So the correcting the growling thing is so deeply entrenched in dog training folklore that I don't know if it'll ever go away. Because on the surface, it sounds like it makes so much sense. If you correct the growling, then you won't get the warning. Now, if you correct the growling and you don't do anything else to ensure that the dog state of mind wise moves into a better space, you could have a dog that doesn't growl and doesn't give you fair warning because you haven't done a comprehensive job of training the dog. Even that's pretty shaky. The whole thing is that the growl is the beginning sign of the dog moving into a bad headspace. So I think it's a better way to frame it like this. So instead of thinking of the growl as a warning, think of the growl as a signal that I'm moving into a bad headspace. Now, if you correct the growl and you get the dog out of that headspace, then the dog's in this kind of neutral no man's land. Now the dog has to figure out, how do I deal with this situation? Because I'm telling you, if you allow the growling stuff to go on, the dog is just cycling through that negative emotional state, and it's just being reinforced. If I'm worried about you and and you don't do anything about it, I just stay here. I can't get myself out of it as a dog. Now, if I correct the dog, I can get the dog out of it. And then once I get the dog into a neutral headspace, and some people would argue and say, well, the dog's not neutral. He's just inhibiting the growl. No, it actually changes the dog's mental state. So once you've changed the mental state and got the dog into some space of neutrality, the dog can then, what I call, naturally counter condition itself. It's even too fancy language. I kind of find that annoying, but it is about the best explanation for it. Meaning, if the dog gets into a neutral headspace, then it can, without experiencing the negative emotions over and over again, it can then start to develop a new association with whatever it is. That's the best way I can explain it. So if we allow the growling to continue, then the negative association is just reinforced. And some people will be like, no, give it food. And it's kind of like, no, that's not going to make the dog have a different feeling about that thing. So, if you correct, and we have corrected every single dog for growling for 17 years, every single dog for growling, because the growling is the beginning. Well, actually, the growling is not the beginning. The growling is a fair way down the sequence of escalation. So when the dog goes from like, so the growling's a fair way down. So you've already missed multiple signals where the dog is starting to get into a weird space. So for me, if a dog is starting to get into a weird space and starting to show that they're getting stiff and they're getting like, I'll correct that stuff straight away. Think about it this way, Alex. As soon as the dog tells me I'm getting into a bad headspace, and whether that's from like, they're a reactive dog, like, I correct that straight away. Why? Am I some tyrant, some sadist? No, because the dog just told me I'm getting into a bad headspace, because they're starting to, they've locked onto a trigger. Let's say it's another dog, and they're starting to load up on that other dog. Correct. Boom. Break that emotional cycle they're in. Now the dog goes, okay, I can't do that. If I do that, I get corrected. Okay, now I'm in a more neutral space. And now out of my peripheral vision, I see that dog still there. Okay, cool. Now I just get to a space where I don't give a shit about that dog. And I don't mean just that dog. I mean, you just do it over and over and over again. And what ends up happening is like, there's a dog again. Because I don't get to experience the fulfillment of that emotional cycle of, I just call it see, feel, explode, right? And if you break that and instead it's like see, correction, shit, I don't get to go to the feel and explode. Now, of course, there's some feeling in there, right? I get it. I'm trying to shorten it and keep it succinct, but it doesn't get to go through its full cycle of like, ugh! Instead, it's just like, correction, oh, I'm right back. So they get a tiny little flavor of getting into a bad space, and then they're right out of it. And then what that enables them to do, if we're talking about like reactivity, it enables them to get to a space where they're just like, there's another dog. Same thing with people coming in the house and the dog growling. Correction for growling. Don't growl. I know that when you're growling or in any of the previous signs or signals where the dog, somebody walks in, the dog's like hard-eyed and staring like that. Correction. Like you're telling, you might as well be waving a flag or a sign. I'm uncomfortable. This is weird. And a lot of people be like, well, the dog's uncomfortable. You got to make, I'm going to tell the dog, there's no need to be uncomfortable. And I don't want you in that headspace. That feeling that you are associating with that person, that trigger is unacceptable and unnecessary. And by stopping it, I create the space in the dog's brain where they're neutral to where they can then go, okay, I'll deal with this. All right, there's that person. Right, I'm not allowed to go through the whole see, feel, explode thing, so I'll just kind of take it in. And what ends up happening, and we've seen it with so many dogs, what ends up happening is the dog eventually gets to a space where they're like, there's people again. It takes time, but like, what about doing, and I don't mean you, but I'm just saying like the argument of counter conditioning with food. It's like, how long does that take? Well, that probably takes about 15 years until the dog has passed away. So we correct all signs of, just to keep it simple and put a bow on this, we correct all signs of dogs getting into a bad space, because like, let's just keep it simple. Do we want dogs to be visiting bad headspace land? No. And if I can help them out of it, I can't explain it to them. I can't be like, that's not somebody to worry about, and that dog's okay, and that dog's your friend. Like, I can't explain that stuff to them, but I can say, I don't want you in that headspace, thus creating a neutral headspace for them to then develop a new association with whatever that trigger is. And by continuing that process of not allowing the negative and then allowing the dog to just develop new associations, I don't need the dog to be positive and be like, I love dogs when I see them, or I love people when I see them. I just want them to be like, cool, I'll just hang. Not every dog is going to get to the space where they love to see other dogs or love interactions, but just being neutral, being comfortable around them, that's great. Now, some dogs are going to be more social with people, and that have been, I mean, Henri, my head trainer back in Chatsworth, her dog Malu, we tell the story all the time about her. She super fearful, growly, and would we had to be really careful because there were lots of trainers and interns and shadows and stuff all around. And so the big concern was that she was going to bite somebody. And what did we do? We just put her in a space where nobody was allowed to go around her. She had an e-collar on, so she couldn't growl. She couldn't engage in any negative head mindset behavior, but she was in a crate where nobody would go and put any pressure on her, even to give her food, because that's pressure. And people are like, but I'm giving her a nice thing. And she's like, I don't want fucking anything to do with you. Please go away. But here's food. No. So no one was allowed to apply any pressure. She was not allowed to have a negative reaction. And then over time of like, there's more people, nobody comes and bothers me, there's more people. Then we'd let her out, nobody bothers her. Then she started to get curious. Then she started to become friendly. Then she started to warm up and get into a great space. And now she's pretty darn good with people. So anyways, that's a long way of getting to the fact that, yes, we correct all growling, but we also correct hard eyes. We correct all of any of the sequence That cat is driving me crazy. Any of the sequence of a dog's mindset going from comfortable, relaxed, neutral space to something like that up to the growling, and then of course then we get into the lunging and all that stuff, and then you're like way too far gone. But correct any of that stuff and give the dog the fucking information they need to be like, oh, that's a bad headspace for me to get into, okay, I won't do it. Then they have the opportunity to actually find a different headspace around those triggers, whatever they might be, via the neutrality that you created, via a consequence, correction, aversive, something like that. Super controversial. A lot of people will say that that's absolute BS. All I can say is like 17 years I'm waiting for that ticking time bomb. I'm still waiting for it to happen. They keep telling me, but we just don't see it. So anyways.
Okay, so a real quick last one, just because it's already 5:20. Winston's dad is saying you guys took so much time on our to-go homes, totally forgot about the fireplace. And then LOL.
Yeah, luckily he was just the right size to fit in there and like tuck himself in there. Yeah, but yeah, they came from New York down to New Orleans. Talk about like committed. They drove all the way down from New York. Yeah. And so of course we're going to give you guys a long go home session. Not only did you drive 1,000,000 miles, but you guys had a really, really hard situation. And and
Winston is one lucky guy to have you guys.
Yeah, there are not many dogs that would still be around with Winston stuff. Same thing goes for Trisha and Dozer. Like there are not many people that would have kept Dozer around after his shenanigans. And we've been lucky to see a lot of owners or a lot of dogs that have been very, very, very lucky dogs, having like being focused more on the behavior mod side of things. We're
without those owners, they wouldn't have had a chance.
And we see so many dogs, like even like thinking about like Vinny,
I was thinking about Vinny, but even like Samson and Shelby,
Yeah, Samson. Yeah, I want to get into Samson's whole story because it's a long one. But Vinny was a dog that he was the first dog that we saw here when we moved.
Our very first born train in the Pacific Northwest, and also we're starting Shadow Week this coming Monday, and she's coming with Vinny to the Shadow program.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so and she had to, Vinny was biting her multiple times, had bitten her multiple times, and
going into the crate and just bad stuff.
Yeah, and so anyways, those are the best. Those are the best things. We've been super lucky to watch a lot of people make some amazing transformations in themselves and their dogs.
Yes. All right, you guys, it's been a blast as usual.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. Next Wednesday we'll try and do something like this live, but this time, because we will be in the middle of Shadow Week, what we'll do is we'll set it up for our Shadow students, and they will ask us questions, and then you guys can listen and watch to a little bit of an inside scope to our Shadow program. And
you got this all planned out.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. I didn't know about this.
We've talked about it.
We have?
Yes. I am the keeper of your memories.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm getting up there.
You are getting
up there in age. So
once we have kids, will you remember what their names are?
No, that's the whole thing. When you get older, like, I don't remember anybody's name now.
You don't even remember your own birthday.
No, I don't. That's true. So
it's soon, by the way.
Thanks. Anyways, gang, thanks for tuning in. It was great to hear from some old friends and newer friends and clients and everybody checking in. That's super cool. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you next Wednesday. All right. Take care.
Bye. Okay, I need to slowly do this whole thing. End live video.